Hey everybody, it's Don Music here. How you're all doing today? I am going to look at the engineering side of one of my favorite studio albums. It's a current one, it's by The Warning, and it's called Keep Me Fed. There are a lot of controversies about this studio recording here in the production. Um, a lot of love, a lot of hate, a lot of complaints. Some of them are very specific and picky about certain um, criticisms people have, they claim to have about, or conclusions they have about the recording, from an engineering point of view that I've read. Many are more subjective about the way it feels and sounds to them. I have simultaneously hated and loved this recording at different times. Well, not simultaneously, I guess, I'm right. I have my initial thought when I heard the recordings, the very initial thought were disappointment in the general mix tone and frequency response and a couple of decisions made. Then I grew to absolutely love them. And as I analyze them, we are going to find out what I really think of this stuff. We can try to identify what I think are more popular standards for how things are mixed in the world of rock versus other genres and how this fits in with those genres. But I'm mostly going to try to look at things from a perspective of engineering choices, how I believe certain things may have been things I might have done differently. I'm trying to be politically correct here, but let's wait and I'll be very blunt about things if I hear things I don't like or I believe are engineering wrong. And remember, when we're talking about engineering a mix, being a studio record mix engineer, that is an engineering job. Engineering is a science. There is a set of standards, a set of rules. You can break those rules and you can do whatever you want to accomplish your goal. But the basic fundamentals of how to record, those rules exist for a lot of good reasons. And with the prevalence of DAWs, digital audio workstations, becoming a software application that anyone and everybody can get, it means that just like everything else in the world, like making a website, everyone thinks they can do it, even though there's a lot of skill required to actually do things well and properly and effectively. Just like singing, everyone thinks they can do it, but some people rely on a lot of tools to do it, and some people are truly not anywhere near as good as they think they are because they've never worked with someone who is a truly great singer, or they've never had honest criticism. I am overall a huge fan of Anton DeLost, who is the producer and I believe the main mix engineer, and I believe the main tracking engineer. I could be wrong though. I can check those credits later for the Keep Me Fed album by The Warning, because the album overall is wildly successful. Overall, it has a consistent sound kind of to it, but mostly because the guy is the guy who got the opportunity to work with The Warning, and they love him. And they chose to work with him again on the current album they're finishing up now. So that means this guy has the magic that they need, right? A producer, which is probably what I'm talking about here for their relationship with him. A producer is someone who has to work directly with the band, with the artists, and get the most out of them, the best out of them, by whatever means work best with that artist and that the artist acknowledges turned out the best stuff. But also, there should be at least a mutual respect and a like or even love of working with that person. For whatever reason, he's got it. So that's great. That's the most major thing about this. He is the man to work with those people. He is the people to work with those people to make their albums currently. So respect the man. He won their hearts as a producer, and that's the main thing. Without him, we might not have had Keep Me Fed, or it might not have been anywhere near as good as it is. Who knows, right? Because they wrote that in a fit of desperation while they were touring, from what I understand. So enough summary. And again, that's my preface that Anton, if you ever see this or hear this, well done, sir. Huge respect to you. Now, but I'm going to be tough on things. I'm going to be tough on decisions that you made, Anton, and we're going to see where this comes from. And I know right up front that there's certain things I'm going to want to change. So unfortunately, I don't have the original tracks. I'm reverse engineering using machine learning, which is a flawed technology, but it's also amazing that it exists at all. there are artifacts that come out of it. There's lack of separation in many things, mess ups, missing information, a lot of noises and a lot of weird glitchy sounds that come out of machine learning. And the original effects are still baked into it. So there's not that much I could do here. I'm not really remixing this. But you have to call it remix in the sense that I am trying to reverse certain aspects of the original. I do the stem separation as much as I can. And then I try to reverse effects on the instruments that I want to reverse so that I can try to change them to something I might think would be interesting to try, or I believe would be superior in some way for the mix that I'm trying to get. So we're going to do a remix here. And I'm going to start with one of the very first songs that we all heard, not the first song, but the song that I first heard, which I immediately had issues with as far as the mix goes. And this song is Hell You Call a Dream by The Warning from the album Keep Me Fed, a huge single for the band, one of the most vocally amazing songs that they've ever had, and a very keyboard-driven song, because I believe it was co-written with, among other people, several people, but among other people, the touring keyboardist from Muse, who became a good friend of The Warnings. Let's take a listen to the beginning here, and I'm going to make my first impressions of what I would like to address at the beginning. This is the original Hell You Call a Dream. The keys at the beginning, that very, very distorted keys sound at the beginning, it's cool. It's a really cool sound and impressive in the sound. I can't unmix it. It is what it is. I mean, I could take it out, but that's cool. I like it. But that's a signature thing, and I'm assuming this is an intro that's played by the keyboardist from Muse. So that's actually pretty cool, right? So skipping that, let's listen to when the band comes in. Okay. Right away. What's that first sound we heard? What instrument is that, folks? It's a snare drum, right? Listen to the snare drum here. There we go. This is the original drum sound. I know this machine learning rips, so it's a little lower fi than usual. I've turned off all of my edits, all of my changes. Alrighty. So what I'm going to do here is turn off the original recording. We're going to mute that out of there. I'm going to go over to the drums because what I'm hearing here isn't something I particularly like. So this is the machine learning rip. I'm going to turn off my master channel effects because yes, I do use them. Don't be a purist. And I'm going to turn off all the effects edits I've done on the drum channel itself. So this is just the machine learning rip of just the drum part. Take a listen to the sound of the drums here. Now, there's a lot of stuff wrong with that, okay? And, I mean, there are a lot of ways that I really like the sound of the drums in this album. Some tracks more than others. Some songs have better sounding drums than others, which concerns me. It should never be like that. But anyway, especially when the same engineer did it all. But maybe they were going for a mood. I don't know. That's okay if that's true. But these drums have things I don't love. The snare drum, first of all. It sounds dark. It sounds very dead. It's missing a lot of the actual snare sound. The snare rattles underneath, if they're tuned properly, which I'm sure they are with the amazing instruments that Pao has access to. There should be more brightness to it inherently. That's natural. I'm sure it was there when she was actually playing, assuming that she's playing an actual acoustic drum kit, which I would certainly hope she did. There's a weird room sound to the resonance that I dislike because after the room sound, which sometimes is picking up noise, which might be machine learning errors, but after that weird room echo, which like so there's different types of like reverb and echoes and stuff. It's actually just reverb. So reverb is like when I hit like boom, it go boom, right? That long sort of boom, fading away sound afterwards, or boom, it'd be boom, right? That's reverb, right? Right? Those are sorts of examples of human-made copies of what reverb sounds like. But that's one type of reverb. Then there's early reflections, which is a short type of reverb, which is more like the reverb we all have in our own rooms, or even a larger room that exists. They just are different. early reflections are the very first slapback that you get, and they might even go back and forth a little bit depending on the size and shape of your room. It's a very common problem when you're recording at home. That's why you shouldn't record at home unless you have properly treated environment or very near-field microphones, and you know what you're doing. But anyway, early reflections are like that short sound. So like they're hitting the snare, bap, right? So that'd be like bap, bap. That's like you hit the sound, and then there's like immediate thick sound that just disappears. It tends to be quite a dense, strong sound. Early reflections, it's like a very short, like boom, boom, boom amount of reverb right at the beginning before the tail, the long reverb tail comes on, which is like, bah, right? So there's this tail afterwards, like, bah, is the early reflection. There's no reverb tail that I can hear. There is early reflection. Some of it's too dense, in my opinion, for the amount of everything else we're hearing. Because the attack, the drum sounds like it's overcompressed to me. So when you're mixing a snare drum, the natural sound of a snare drum is very high attack. And they sound great, but they sound very roomy and open. One of the coolest things that they started doing more in the early 80s, maybe in the late 70s, is compressing snare drums more and kick drums more. It actually made a huge difference to the sound of both. But let's talk snare drums for a moment. When you compress the attack of the snare drum, just take a general compressor with a fairly short attack speed and start turning the threshold down, which means like a compressor takes like this is your level. So say this is like your meters, go up like from nothing up to the top here, okay? Top is gonna be like top of my forehead. So the snare drum, let's say that the person hits it, Pow hits it, and it's like, bam, it comes right up here, bam. So when you hit the snare drum, it'd be like, the level will go like, bam, and then come down, bam, right? Now, a threshold of a compressor senses the sound coming in, listens to it, and will lower the level dynamically based on settings you give it. The threshold is like whatever 0 decibels is the top. So this is like the highest you can record at. Negative like 100 decibels or whatever is the bottom. Okay, so if we go down to like 5 decibels, that means that anything that hits here and the sound reaches this level will trigger the compressor. 10 decibels, minus 10 decibels. So minus 10 from 0. Minus 10 decibels. Anything that exceeds this range will trigger the action of the threshold of the compressor. 20, 30, 40, and so on. So let's take a compressor and put it at like, so she's hitting the drum and it's going almost all the way to the top, okay? Let's say like minus 5 decibels is where it's at. That's really extreme. I'm just using it as an example. Let's set a compressor to minus 20 decibels, okay? The threshold. And what will happen, we can then set the compression level to 1 to 2. So for every 1 decibel of volume, once the compressor is enabled, it'll have that. So it compresses it by a certain amount. So anything below the threshold, your 20 decibels that's going on, is not affected by the compressor, this really simplistic situation. Anything that she hits the snare drum and it goes above it will trigger it and it'll immediately get compressed. And then that triggers a timer. There's an attack timer that allows the compressor to go, the attack to go through without being compressed. Then the attack timer runs out. It's a few milliseconds or whatever, generally on most compressors, microseconds on a certain one. And then it'll stay compressed by the certain amount while the dynamic still continues to exist. It'll stay compressed until the release time runs out. Let's say it's 200 milliseconds, which is a fifth of a second. So then after that point, it'll allow it back up again. But if you've timed it right, then it doesn't suddenly go like, woo again or any of that. It's just like, right? So the attack of the snare, which is normally like a bright, like bang, something goes like, bang, it pulls it back. And when you pull back the attack, more of the darkness of the rest of the sound, which isn't the attack, which is the body of the drum, is louder by comparison than it used to be because the attack has been reduced. So the whole thing mushes together more. So you lose some of the brightness, you lose some of the articulation, and you get more of the thickness of the body of the sound. And that's where that 80s snare drum, bam, bam, sounded so good on a lot of albums. Great commercial sound you can get out of it. You can overcompress the snare by reducing the attack time too much so that there's no room for it to breathe with the initial attack. You can reduce it by having the release time being too long so that it stays compressed for too long of a time. Or you can screw this up by having the threshold too low so it triggers everything, not just the loud hits. Worst case, you can have the compression level 1 to 2 times, 1 to 3 times. You can have it set to compress far too much after it's triggered. So that means it'll like be like a brick wall limiter if you go to like infinity to 1. Infinity compression means that is just this brick wall. If you set the threshold really low and you set the compression to infinity 1, which is a true limiter, it means that everything will not move one bit until it's reduced that level. It means that the whole sound of the snare is just this mush of sound. And honestly, it isn't nearly that extreme, but I hear a little bit too much compression on the snare drum here. That was a really long rant about snare drum compression. But I'm glad I had a chance to talk about it, because I believe that's something that recurs in this album. Is a little too much in the snare drum compression. And also, it could be just that, or it could be EQing down the brightness of the snares and possibly the cymbals a little too much for my taste. So it tends to sit very darkly in the mix. I want snare drum to sound natural, yet still with some compression and attack to it that comes through, but has some body to it. I think that's a superior sound, especially for rock. This isn't a synth guy. This isn't like someone just messing around with like fake synth drums. This is a legit drummer and a world-renowned, award-winning drummer and a rock drummer. Appreciate the tone that she gets out of the drum. Don't suck the tone out of the drum. So that's my first complaint. Kick drum sounds great. It's also very compressed, but there's still attack coming through, and kick drums sound good with that, and there's a nice attack. He's probably got the microphone on the beater as well, if he's using an acoustic bass drum. Cymbals are a little too soft for me. Not quite bright enough, but also a little too soft for me. It's not the end of the world, but I prefer a little more cymbal sound. There is a nice little bit of reverb on the snare. It's just eaten up by the fact that I think it's overcompressed, and that way we're hearing too much of the early reflections in the attack. Not in that initial flam, but in the basic snare drum on 2 and 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. That snare drum sounds overcompressed. Here. And I don't know if it's machine learning or not, but it is funny how when the snare is, I mean, she's a really accurate drummer. Really accurate. But you're hearing a lot of level inconsistencies with the snare there. I don't know. I could blame machine learning for that. But if it's actually in the recording, then something really strange is going on. Either a bad performance, which is highly unlikely, or miscontrolled compressors. Or it's being re-triggered into drum machine with an automatic humanization effect, which is messing with the dynamics. Or very possibly this is just machine learning. Let's assume for a minute it's machine learning. But regardless, let's do something about the sound of this thing. So what I could do, let's look at the effects that I used here. Now, these are all turned off at the moment. We're going to turn them on one at a time. So the upward expander is a reverse compressor. There's the threshold. At minus 6.5 decibels below 0, this will be enabled. Ratio, 0.44. Not 0.44 to 1 compression. It's increasing the dynamics by 0.44. Triggers opposite to a compressor. A compressor over a certain threshold level will start compressing the stuff above that level by the amount of the rest of the controls. An expander will look for your threshold, in this case, minus 6.5 decibels. So if this is 0 decibels at the top, this is minus 100, then everything that's above minus 6.5 decibels from the top, very, very loud stuff only, will not be compressed any more than it is. It'll be loud through. Anything below 6.5 decibels, so the rest of the range, will be reduced. The level will be 0.44 times what it was before. There's instant attack I set this for because I really want to hear this change. You don't have to do it that way, but I experimented with audio in this particular scenario with the mixed drums. I thought it worked better this way. The release time is 66 milliseconds, so it doesn't do a lot of pumping really fast, but it does re-trigger quickly for any actual multiple snare hits and things like that are quick, which she does do quickly. Don't need to worry about the RMS size. And I increased the output level by 9.7 decibels, which just makes up, with any compressor, you have to have a compensation amount because it'll make things quieter overall in many ways. I wanted to bring the general level of the drums up a little bit here for what comes after this, which we'll talk about in a minute. So turning on the upward expander will make things a little more dynamic. It's subtle, but it will. This is before. But I want the snares to come through a little more. Let's try it with it so you can hear it. Snare hits are louder and kick drum hits are a little louder. See, look here. See this? That's the expansion amount. Kick drum and snare are triggering it. So the net result is it makes the attacks over this much, over this level, louder than the rest of it. So you can see where it's doing it and which one. So it does sound more dynamic now. It restores some of the dynamics because the entire drum track was too damn compressed. Okay? It was. It's too compressed. Dramatically so. I'm throwing it through a limiter here. This is only just to catch emergency levels. So it's a brick wall limiter. I doubt it'll trigger it, but let's take a look. No, it's not even getting close to triggering. This is just an emergency only. Okay? So none of these hits as they go through are getting near the red lines here. So we're fine. Now, let's see the next thing I added. EQ. Why? Because there are lots of issues. First of all, snare area, 7. 3,577 hertz, which is an A7. I love how this app does this. Shows you the note. I increased it by 2.9 decibels. It's nice low bandwidth, so it has a fair bit of overlap over about an octave below, an octave above almost. Then at 5,630, I'm reducing it by 0.2 decibels, also fairly neutral. So there's a increase and then a decrease. I think this one, which is a subtle increase at 7.5, 7.6 kilohertz, just a little bit to bring out a little bit of brightness overall. So we've got that in there. Now let's go down to 4. This is at 887 hertz. We're very smooth, 1.5 octave range above and below, increasing by 1.6 decibels. So this is generally bringing up a lot of the mids. And then 7 is bringing it up quite sharply, the snare attack area, which is around here, without being too bright. 8 is rather dramatically reducing 5,600 hertz, and that's because I found that it really overloaded a lot of snare noise here and a lot of hi-hat noise and cymbal noise there. Didn't like that. And then we're just adding a little bit of like tss, tss in the cymbals up here with 5 being up there, and also making sure it doesn't sound too dramatically dark suddenly with a sudden decrease. Then we have a couple of really strong ones. 3 and 2. 3 is here and 2 is here. That's something I found later on when we listened to the toms. I found them to be really like boomy, and there's like boom, boom, boom as you're going through it. And it was actually like distorting. It sounded horrible. I couldn't stand the sound of the toms because this giant resonance coming through. So I'm trying to remove that. So I went through and I found with 2, I put on an extreme decrease in decibels, minus 12 decibels, really sharp frequency, actually not so sharp at the beginning. And I would just mess around with frequency range to listen for the fundamental. And you can identify it and enter it by name, by note name if you want. But I just listened to it as I dragged it through, and I looped it through a tom sequence going, and I listened to it, and I could reduce the sound of the initial sound, the fundamental pitch, dramatically, and then I narrowed that really strongly. Then I mathematically went up to approximately an octave of it. I adjusted a little bit up from there because it just sounded better to slightly increase it from there because there was another funny overtone that was coming through. I wanted that first harmonic and the overtone to be reduced dramatically, and that sounded so much better. Then down here at 6, strongly reducing at 6, and that was because there was a lot of sound from the lower toms coming through, and the kick drum was really muddy sounding at this point, so I'm fixing all that up. So now let's listen to that. So the drums, without the EQ, drums with the EQ. Snare sounds brighter. Kick sounds better. Let's listen to the toms. Where are the toms? Here are the toms. Toms without the EQ. I mean, they sound good, but... But I didn't like the sound. It was too dominant in the mix finally. So this is it with the EQ. More of the attack. I think the toms sound better. My guide for the ultimate toms is Back in Black and stuff like that from AC/DC, and I tried to go for that sound. Exciter. That's because the machine learning loses some of the top end, but also I believe that some of the top end was simply missing in the mix the way he did things. I didn't like that. And Exciter brings up some of them. I actually have 2 of them on here. This is a really musical sounding one that I like the sound of. So it's hard to explain what it does. It's more of an artistic piece. So I try it out and see how things sound with it sometimes. Without the Exciter. With the Exciter. The cymbals sound nicer. And I think the snare sounds more open. Then there's another snare, another exciter I added. This is the neutron exciter. This one is designed specifically for the drum bus to add some body. Now it's starting to sound much better, right? This is in the beginning with it. Listen to the snare. Sounds good, right? We still have a lot of really sharp cutoffs, and the part of the machine learning, but part of that is also the mix. Really short early reflections he's got going on. I threw it through a multi-band compressor. It's very, very subtle what I'm doing here. Very, very subtle. Even though I did some restoration of the dynamics, then I have to reintroduce the correct impact so it sounds full. So it sounds unintuitive probably to you guys, but I'm compressing for tone, not for flatness. And it's a multi-band compressor. I've got 6 bands going on here. See at the top of the cymbals here, I'm trying to keep them going pretty evenly. Catching the kick drum, snare overall, and the tom. The snare attack here is different from the body of the snare. Then, let's turn that on. Then I turn on a reverb. And listen to that. Now it's starting to sound much more musical and full, right? And you can hear the hi-hat coming through. You hear the snare, hit the kick, hear the kick. Yeah, I'm happy with this. And then again at the end, another limiter just to catch anything that might go over. There's no way it should. But they're very low CPU use, and I don't mind them. They don't introduce any artifacts unless they're triggered. Now I've got a drum sound that I like. And just for record, I've got a mix mastering setup here. Take a listen to the difference. That's the compressor, an EQ, a little tapeworm, and a tiny speck of reverb body as well. Isn't that nice? I'm not a fan of this, but whatever, you can't do it. It sounds stupid. I turned it off and it sounded stupid. But now we've got a good drum sound. Finally. Let's listen to what it sounded like. This is my drum sound. And this is his drum sound. I know it's quieter. Listen how dead that is. Even with my mastering effects. They do improve it, but it's still pretty dead. Alright. Now, that's to me a much better drum sound. Within the limitations of how it had to be ripped from the original track, so I'm not working the originals. So bass, yes. Let's take a look at the bass here. This is what the bass currently sounds like. Some of that is machine learning issues. It doesn't do well extracting bass, especially in a thick mix, especially overdriven. But regardless, that's pretty close to what it sounds like on the album. Louder than that, but yeah. Let's add the Aphex Vintage Exciter. So this is a recreation of the original Aphex Oral Exciter. It's a hardware device. I have one somewhere, and they're amazing, but I'm using the plugin, which works beautifully. It's kind of a magical exciter. Exciters generate harmonics from the content, upper harmonics, to recreate either high frequencies that weren't there in the current mix or track, or to add energy or warmth or whatever you like. And you can do them in different frequency ranges. It just changes things. It makes it warmer, thicker, more analog, whatever you like, depending on how you use it. This one is particularly good. It's adding warmth and presence and thickness to something, as well as attack. Let's take a listen with it. With it. Then we've got another exciter we're using. This is the neutron. It's a little more magical. I sort of understand what it does. Trying to describe what it does is complicated, but it's also an exciter. It's very frequency dependent, and it does a lot of interesting stuff. Then we're throwing a limiter on the end. That's just to catch overloads, but there aren't any, so it's all good. Throw on my master effects. Spec a reverb and EQ compression. That's just a compression on the bus. Very lightly done. Is glue to bring the parts together. Throw it together with our drums. That sounds good. I think it sounds really good compared to that to what we had before. I know it's quiet, but with my changes, much more live. Not just brighter, it's more live and present. Now let's listen to the guitar. So rhythm guitar. It's a good sound. It's a really good sound. I like it. There's weird glitching going on. It might be machine learning. It might have been in the mix. I almost think it sounds like it's in the mix when I listen to the full mix on the CD, where the guitar is almost like the levels like glitching up and down a little bit. Could have been the fuzz pedal used or something. I don't know. Bugs me. Really bugs me. But I'm not going to try to fix it right now because that's really difficult. But we've lost attack. There's no attack in this. It's there, but the only time there's attack at the beginning, but there's a compression that's going on. I don't have any compressors on this stuff right now. But you heard it started, and then it immediately was compressed, and the compression stayed. Like there's a compressor on it with a really long release time that never resets. Which is, if that's actually what happened in the original mix, and it's not some other error or machine learning thing glitching it out, then that's erroneous use of a compressor. That's not how they're supposed to be used. It sounds bad. Whatever the reason, I don't like the way it sounds in the mix here. I find it too dead, and I want more attack, so we're going to use the upward expander again. The upward expander, in this case, at minus 11, 12 decibels, so about like here. If this is 0, we're going down about here. Anything above that line will go up. Anything below that line will be compressed by 0.82 times, so a little compression on it below that, and it will allow enough of the attacks to come through. And I have a brief attack that allows it to go without any touching, so that's good. But then the main thing here is the release time of almost 300 milliseconds. I musically decided that that break, that break is a little longer than 285 milliseconds, which allows it to reset, so we get our attack back afterwards. So now it's like da 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 dum dum da 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 dum da 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 da. That's why I wanted to get back, because it's gone. The only time you hear it in the original mix that I extracted is da da dum da 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 dum dum da da da. I don't like that. So let's see what it sounds like with my upward expander. You should hear those attacks now. It's subtle, but it's there, and you can see it's going on because of this. So we're adding the upward expander, and we're going to turn on the exciter. This is a really nice one. It's called drum room excitement, this preset, but again, I modified it, and it sounded best for what I'm trying to accomplish, which brings out some body to it, and an EQ, taking out some of the mids, lower mids, and some of the really high frequency noise, because that tends to be machine learning noise and fuzz, even without machine learning. I don't want too much fuzz, even if it's a fuzz thing. I find that annoying to listen to. I've always hated the sound of a fuzz pedal that isn't EQ'd out a little bit, even though it's a great sound as long as you turn down the fuzziness. So with all these effects on, let's take a listen. Now you can hear that. You can hear that attack. Much better, and I like the tone of it. Let's add that into the mix with our bass and drums. And again, there's something going on there with the guitar where it like is messed up. Might be machine learning mixing. But that's okay. I can try to fix that. It's a lot of work. Still sounds good. Over here. Sounds really good. Sounds really heavy. Here. Sounds good. I think that's in the mix. Drum fill here sounds awesome. Listen to the drums. And the snare. See, it's coming through so well with lots of attack. Guitar. Perfect level harmonizing over the bass. The bass is really dominant and fuller in the mix. I really like that sound. So add in lead guitar. Lead guitar. Where's the lead guitar coming in? That does something musically interesting. Here. It's still going to be quiet. Let me show you. This is what it sounded like with lead guitar. That's the original lead guitar. Dry, thin, nasal, pan to the right. It's a good tone, but something's been sucked out of it I don't like. Let's look what I did. Okay. And again, we lose stuff in the machine learning, so some of this is just restoration of what went wrong. Yeah, so you saw what I did there. So this is, first of all, the neutron exciter. With the exciter, it sounds a little better. It's subtle, though. Then I put it through an amp modeler with Danny's amp. And I actually started with a proper plug-in set. This is a tube screamer. Great way to, it's an overdrive pedal, but it's designed to overdrive what comes afterwards with a subtle presence peak and this odd, tiny, almost delay thing going on with it. It's an interesting effect. Works in front of certain amps really well. Chorus, before it, because I think it sounds beautiful that way. The amp itself. Whoops. Okay. The amp itself. Went through some different settings. These are actually pretty close to the default settings. The drive, gain levels, and volume. That's the cab mic. Got an AKG on it, 414. And then a digital reverb at the end. Check out what this sounds like. Sounds like Danny's leads, right? It's Danny's leads, with the way it should be. We're going to EQ it a little bit, take down this huge area here, which is interfering dramatically with the upper range of the bass notes and the distortion it has, and also with the rhythm guitar there, and also with the voice. Got to carve out some things sometimes. And they left it pretty wide because it sounds better. Then our digital delay, that's panned to the left, panned all the way to the left, 34.5 milliseconds, with a low-pass filter, which means it cuts off everything above 5100 hertz, and a high-pass filter means it cuts off everything below 1321. That brings up a slight delayed sound on the left channel of the same sound, echoing, to add a fullness and a presence in a hard-to-distinguish way in the middle of the mix. Pan to the right sounded horrible. Now it's pan to the right, but you can still hear the left side, almost like a double-tracked guitar. Isn't that beautiful? I really think that's a beautiful sound. So we got the guitar. Is that? Let's turn on our keys. That's a reverb bus for keys. Here's I don't know if that keys actually does anything. This keys does something. And piano. Where's piano? Well, that's piano. And keys. There we go. So now we've got all that going on. Here you're going to hear when the piano comes. Got the piano. Then to that reverb bus. Here. Keys verb. Sounds beautiful and full. No effects on it. No EQing on it. Just some reverb added, and I edited a lot of noisy parts of the back here. Crazy lead guitar part. A lot of weird noise in it. Some of that's machine learning artifacts and stuff, but that's how it goes. Now let's listen to some vocals. Now I had to do some crazy things with the vocals to make it work. That's there for certain parts where I needed the mixed vocals. This is my main vocal track, right? Is it? Yeah, this is my main lead vocal track here. Yeah, okay. So we're going to listen to the vocals now. I'm just going to add them in. It's, well, no, I'll turn off the other shit. Other stuff. Pardon my French, folks. So on the lead vocals, I did some stuff. I was using a D-reverb, but I turned that off because I did it a different way. First thing I did, which I can't demonstrate here because it's not part of my DAW plugin, is I went through here. What else? Oh, I can't. Darn it. You know how There's a lot of processing on the vocals in this song and in the entire album. And a lot of people's complaints about the mix of this stuff in the production are the extra effects on the voice. Because you have fantastic singers in this group that don't need any processing on their vocals. It's reducing the output to be the same sounding as everyone else out there who aren't as good singers as these ladies are. It's like the Taylor processing. I don't mean Taylor Hawkins, I mean the other Taylor. All that sort of stuff is annoying when you have people who just sound fantastic with a speck of reverb on their voice or even nothing. Especially Danny. Powtube, especially Danny. She's like a miraculous voice. So I agree with that. I found it annoying that there was like this brief delay, like this sounded like this, right? There's like a brief echo on it that's annoying as hell. It's more short than that and less obvious, but it's there. It ends up sounding almost like a chorusy effect. So I ran that through a processor. It's a de-reverb convolution system. It took 25 minutes. So I'm not going to try to demonstrate it here. It's all available online. It's free, actually. Really hard to use unless you know what you're doing. But I ran just the vocal track that I extracted from the system through that. Just the lead vocal track. So that allowed me to plunk that directly into here, and it already sounds better than the original vocal track, in my opinion, because it's cleaner. So I have two effects I'm not even using right now. This is just the sound of the vocal after I removed all that stuff. Still has it, but it's less dramatic of an echo. You can hear it. Because it's not a perfect technology. To deconvolve something must leave some of the original effect you're trying to remove. Otherwise, it will remove too much of the actual original sound. Instead of finding a needle in a haystack, it's like trying to find the amount of copper in a needle and remove that only. You know what I mean? And there's probably some copper or something mixed in with its steel or whatever, right? So like it's a blend of metals. It's trying to extract one metal out of a blend of metals. Other than that, I went through a declipper to try to remove a little bit of fuzz. It's very subtle, but it removes a little bit of distortion from the voice.
Been invaded by the need to stay inside this cage. Day after day,
So it's a little cleaner, right? It's getting cleaner and cleaner. It's about as good as we can do without being really obnoxious sounding. Nope. Then I threw on this wonderful Chris Lord Al. You know who he is. Legendary producer. This is his work with a legendary plugin company to create his vocal chain. And you take it and then you mess with it. You have to know what each thing actually does. These buttons have certain weird names, but they actually are like EQ changes of where things affect treble and bass, the compression, how it catches it, the reverb, etc. All these things do certain things. I didn't do any pitch stuff. I did a subtle thing on the delay. Why would I do pitch stuff for the warning? And there's bit sensitivity, which affects the compression and stuff like that. But anyway, here we go. So with that turned on, now we have this sound.
I've been invaded by the
see, the delay is a little obvious sounding in the reverb, but it's a nice sound. But the delay, turn up. It's a small amount, only. I'm actually going to turn down a little bit more. But because there's some delay mixed into it still, this adds a fresh one to it that sounds a little more musical and in stereo. I throw in my master effects. Adds body and presence and a speck of general reverb. Now we have really nice sounding vocals. Let's turn on my other stuff, other instruments. My vision's blurry as the pain keeps crawling up my skin. The pressure's building and I'm on the verge of caving in. Ready enough for the kill. If this can't break me to life, then what will suffering just for the thrill? I'm in too deep. Give me something to believe. This is starting to sound really good. And it's how you call a dream. This sounds really good. And I've got a couple other things where I edit in certain things. Like this is also lead vocals with effects. Because the way it passes stuff around, I had to edit it into a different track. Turn on my reverb. That's a send. So it adds a little more reverb to the lead vocal. This only adds something in the spots here. A little bit. The separated properties on machine learning. That's why I'm adding that. So it's actually the unmixed original, unprocessed original vocal track where it just didn't split properly, and I couldn't really work through my effects. We have harmony vocals, backing vocals. They're interesting. And let's listen to the backing vocal. That's backing vocal track. And I did that because I didn't like these vocals are so synthetic sounding that I thought they were too loud in the mix. So I turned them down. That's what this green thing is here. My level going up and down, and I adjusted the fader, recorded it, and actually programmed it too. And it adjusts the backing vocals to fit. So now what we're going to do is this. A little bit of backing keys that got mismanaged by the machine learning, so I had to bring them back in, otherwise there were weird empty holes in it. And now we're going to do this. We're just going to allow it to play everything that isn't muted. Let's take a listen, see if this works. Yeah, I thought so. I can't handle it. So you know what? I'm going to play it for you now, but it's going to be a rendered mix, and you can hear what this whole thing sounds like together, and I hope it works well for you and you enjoy it. This is my remix, Dawn Music's remix of Hell You Call a Dream from Keep Me Fed album by The Warning. And I put a lot of work into this. I listened to it millions of times. I've got 25 mixes of it. This is ending up being mix 26 now, but it's based on mix 21 with a couple of modifications. And I'm really, really proud of it. I think it sounds really good. It's not perfect, but it solves the things that I wanted to solve. It's more dynamic, it's more expressive, it has more presence, it's more bite, it's more rock, a little less keys, but they have their points and they're necessary in many places. I wish I could improve the sound of the backing vocals, but they're so blended in with the synthesis stuff that I couldn't separate them, and they just sound kind of artificial, which I don't like, but it's, I guess, what they wanted to do. But I think it's a great song, and this sounds much more like the way I would like to listen to it in stereo in my car when I'm driving. I crank it up. I love it. I turn it down really low. I still love it. The first time I listened to Hell You Call a Dream, the studio version, I was disappointed. I really was. This is one of those songs that disappointed me. Not all of them do on this album, but this one did not sound right. It lost so much of the excitement of what was going on live. Alrighty. Hope you enjoyed this. Listen to the full track. It's coming up next. Have a great day. Like, subscribe, comment, please. Absolutely. Share. Tell people about this. And I really appreciate the donations. You guys have been amazing about this. It does keep me going. It literally is helping keep a roof over our head. I hope this was interesting. I hope it isn't too damn boring and long-winded, but I had to go through it like I was going through it myself originally and try to show you every little piece. All right. Rock on.